Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Whitfield Report. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, broadcasting live impromptu here on a Wednesday morning. Uh, it's midnight here on the East Coast, so Wednesday morning here on the East Coast, Tuesday night if you're on the Pacific Coast or wherever California is. And I want to thank you all for joining me here at this late hour. Anyway, contact info as usual. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at somebody_NGC, at Sam Whitfield on Gab, Parler, and Minds. Facebook.com/Whitfield Report, thesamwhitfield.com if you'd like to go to my website. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcast. And speaking of, I will be moving the premium podcast to Apple Podcasts premium as well as on Patreon. I've still got to see if I can do the rights, but because of Apple Podcasts you can basically start like a premium subscription thing for podcasts over there, so I'm gonna do that. I've been working on that while it's been in beta, but now that it's out to the public, I'm going to launch that. So NGC Media will have a podcast page up on Apple Podcasts with my show and a couple other shows that I've done in the past, and maybe like an after-hour live stream thing too, or an audio podcast, kind of like just kind of like a hangout chill podcast. So I'll give you guys more details about that. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Now, one of the reasons why I'm doing this episode is, in fact, because of a podcast listener who tuned in a few weeks ago and actually wrote to me and wanted to know why I left Colorado, why I moved, and why I've made so many snide comments about Colorado, or seemingly snide comments about Colorado. And so I want to just take a few moments to address this. I don't think it should take that long, but as most of you know, I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I lived there until I was roughly, 18, almost 19 years old. I moved in August of 2013 here to Florida, and really haven't looked back since. And I love Colorado, don't get me wrong, but there are a few reasons why I decided to move. First and foremost, the reason why I decided to leave was because two things. One is I had been there all my life, and I had been in Colorado all my life, and I had the opportunity to move to Florida with my mom and stepdad, so I decided to because it was an opportunity, and I was young, and I had never really lived anywhere else, so it seemed exciting to move somewhere else, so I did, and I love it. But also, in a more practical reason, I have cerebral palsy, as many of you know, and one of the things with cerebral palsy is my circulation. It's not as bad as it could be. There are certainly people who have cerebral palsy that have like much worse circulation than I do. But essentially the upshot is that I do not do well in like cold and winters, and with some of the winters that Colorado has had, like even in Denver, um, it's been cold, and plus like having to deal with ice and whatnot, and a wheelchair, like even a rate machine like mine, uh, it can really fuck up a wheelchair at times. So, when I was thinking of whether I wanted to stay or go, I just kind of decided, well, would I rather, live in a place where it's cold a long part of the year, and where the winters can be unpredictable, or would I rather go somewhere where it's like, nice in the winters and mild, and the sun is always out, and not to mention there are always good looking women out in bikinis in the winter. I don't know. Which one would you pick if you were me? So I decided to go to Florida. It has nothing to do with any of the family drama that some people on Facebook might have accidentally read about, and yeah, it has nothing to do with any of the rumors regarding to that, despite what some of you may have heard. Um, and um, yeah, so I love here in Florida, and really that's all there is to say. I'm happy here, and I wanted to address that. Now, the other thing with that I want to address is, why do I make fun of Colorado so much if I'm from there? Well, A, because I mean every place has something that you can make fun of. You know, like even though I live in Florida, I love all the Florida man memes. This state has plenty of stuff to laugh at, and I am fully aware of that. Um, However, one of the things politically speaking, and Bruce City, I'm glad you're here, because this would be a topic that I think you would very much be interested in. Um, Colorado was one of the first states to legalize weed recreationally, and you know the law passed right before I moved down here, so it didn't go into effect until after uh I moved down here, right? But when it was being proposed, it was mainly proposed as like a thing to benefit the state education system, and more specifically, a large portion of that was going to go to the Denver public school system, which the Denver public school system sucks ass, to put it uh, bluntly. And so legalizing weed was proposed as like this big thing to basically help education, right? It was going to uh help fund the schools, and also some public transit. That was where all the weed money was going to go. It was going to help fix a whole lot of Colorado's problems. Well, wouldn't you know it, when the government gets involved in a lot of shit, things don't go according to plan. Um, some of it has gone to education, but uh, not as much as the politicians said it was going to, and uh, the state gets a lot of money for education to begin with anyway, and it just goes into the school board system, and um, in terms of RTD and the public transit system, like, it's funny, things have actually gotten worse with RTD because they unionized in Colorado, and I guess the light rail system and whatnot and the bus system, from what I've been told, has basically gone to shit because of the unions and the Democrats in charge. So, color me shocked. But the most hilarious thing too is, uh, oh, legalizing weed will prevent teenagers from smoking it, and uh it'll make it safe. So yeah, and so let me just say this. I am for weed legalization. I think it's rather harmless. Um I think I when it comes to weed and drugs like that, I kind of lean on the libertarian thing. I definitely think it should be decriminalized and even be legalized. But however, uh, Colorado has basically just turned into another lobby and money dump for the politicians. And I mean, hell, buying weed in Colorado, because it's not federally legalized, you can't uh buy it with a credit card. You have to go into a store and like pay cash, and it's $60 or upwards from what I've heard. I went into weed shop once when I was back in Colorado a few years ago, and it was basically like it was like a wine vintner shop. It was cool, but it's not the kind of utopia thing where everyone just buys weed like you're at McDonald's. That's kind of what everyone seems to think it is, but um it's not. It's more complicated than that. Um and then and as I mentioned, people think that kids aren't going to get into it as much, and that it's going to, and the instances of fake weed are going to go down. Well, because of how expensive weed is in Colorado, and part of that is because of costs of storing it and everything, and also because of the politicians and the lobbyists partly. Kids can't buy weed, so this whole thing of, instances of skunk weed and weed laced with stuff is going to go down. No, oh no, no, no. The cartels will still lace weed with stuff and chemicals, and then sell it to kids, and then kids will smoke that and get sick and whatnot. And so great going with that, guys. Weed legalization really, fixed that. Um, and also because you have to store money in vaults, like these, a lot of the money is transferred by armored trucks, so those are hot spots for robbery. I don't think they've been robbed like too many times. I haven't heard of like any mass heist, but the temptation to rob pure cash is out there as now. But the biggest thing that is probably my pet peeve is all these left wing Californians have moved to my once great state, and I mean, Colorado went from being red to kind of being purplish libertarian to now it's essentially like California, and it's getting worse. And I can't if I wanted to, I couldn't really afford to move back there if I wanted. One of my friends in Colorado, graduated a year ago with his degree in architecture and has a pretty good paying job at a firm downtown, and yet he's still living with his parents because the cost of living and housing has gone up so astronomically because of the the weed bubble. All of these rich yuppies are moving, to Colorado and buying everything up, so it's like really expensive. And I kid you not, the house that I grew up in, and I grew up in a couple because my parents were divorced, but the house that I mainly stayed in, from the time I was in middle school to the time I graduated and left, in a middle class in a solid middle class neighborhood now, is like roughly, like, it's not $1 million, but it's like $500,000. It's gotten really expensive to live there now. So part of that doesn't have to do so much with weed legalization. All of the Democrats from California who have fled because of, legal weed, man, and whatnot. And I don't know, like I said, I'm not necessarily mad that they legalized it. I'm just more upset at the way they legalized it. And I don't think they did as much, research into, well, how it will affect this and that and the other thing that you know, uh I don't think they really did too much on how it would affect everything. So that's all I'm saying. And plus, I mean, let's be honest, Jared Polis is, both a, I mean, I don't care that he's gay, but because he's a Democrat, and because he not so much because he's a Democrat, but because he's a leftist, um, I like to call leftists faggots, even the straight ones. It's like that South Park episode with the bikers. It's that same concept. And it just so happens that Polis is also gay, which again, don't really care, but he's essentially like Gavin Newsom Jr. So, for all you people on my Facebook page who always complain, oh my God, you're making homophobic comments about Polis. No, I'm mocking him because he's following Gavin Newsom, who's a faggot and who completely torched Colorado during COVID. He's a little smart in that he opened up the state before Newsom did. California is still not open. I think they're finally reopening this week. But suffice it to say, Colorado, y'all need a better governor. I mean, I know I'm spoiled here because I've got Ron DeSantis and he's pretty much like the apex. But I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Colorado. I can't save you guys anymore. I tried to warn you about all this stuff when I was there, and I know I was only 18. And what does the 18-year-old know about